Hey guys, tonight get ready for an unbelievable journey into the heart of the Roman Empire. Forget the majestic monuments or the dry laws you once knew. We're about to unveil a completely different Rome, where wild bacchanalian feasts made all reason vanish, where wine was not just a drink, but a key unlocking doors to dreamlike, hallucinatory realms. You'll be astonished to learn about death curses etched onto lead tablets, or the mysterious courage potions that transformed gladiators into emotionless fighting machines. Would you dare to try the strange healing methods of Roman physicians, where the line between cure and a profound high became blurred? And even the greatest minds, the renowned poets and philosophers, sought dangerous shortcuts to reach the pinnacle of creativity. Each chapter is a door opening to secrets history has tried to bury, a whisper from a distant past. But every indulgence comes with a price, and Roman hangovers were more terrifying than any nightmare you've ever experienced. Finally, we'll see how this wild legacy still subtly permeates and shapes our culture today, from music festivals to the painkillers you still use. So dim the lights, pull your blanket close, and immerse yourself in this story. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and let us know where you're listening from.
Imagine the air, thick as a shroud, heavy with the cloying sweetness of fermenting wine and the sharp, dizzying bite of exotic incense. Below the hallowed hills of Rome, in forgotten catacombs and hidden chambers, the very ground vibrated with a rhythm that was not of this world. Drums, primal and insistent, pounded like the frantic pulse of a trapped beast, urging bodies to move, to writhe, to shed the thin veneer of civilization. Here, in the suffocating darkness, whispers turned to shouts, shouts to ecstatic screams, and the boundaries between noble and slave, man and woman, vanished like smoke in a gale. You thought modern parties were wild? You haven't seen anything until you've witnessed the Bacchanalia, where sanity itself was a forgotten myth. Bodies, slick with sweat and wine, swayed under flickering torchlight, their shadows dancing monstrously on damp stone walls, a grotesque ballet of pure, unadulterated abandon. This wasn't merely revelry, it was a surrender, a descent into the very core of primal instinct, a place where the god Bacchus didn't just visit, he possessed. You see, for centuries, Rome had been a city of rigid order, of laws carved in stone, of stoic faces and public virtue. But beneath that polished facade, a wild current always ran, a primal yearning for release. And that yearning found its ultimate expression in the cult of Bacchus, the Roman equivalent of the Greek Dionysus. Initially, this was a relatively tame affair, a women's-only ritual held in daylight, a quiet homage to the god of wine and fertility. It was a chance for Roman matrons to step away from their domestic duties, to share a cup and perhaps a quiet prayer. Think of it as a very exclusive ancient book club, but with more grapes and less reading. But like a vine given too much sun and water, the cult began to grow, twisting beyond its original bounds. Men, drawn by the allure of forbidden ecstasy, demanded entry, and when they got in, the quiet prayers turned into something far more vibrant. Soon, the daylight rituals became nocturnal orgies, moving from private homes to secret subterranean grottos and hidden cellars beneath the city's bustling streets. You'd never know they were there, these gaping mouths of stone that swallowed up Rome's most respectable citizens and spat them out hours later, utterly transformed.
The air down there was thick, not just with the scent of wine and incense, but with the raw, animalistic musk of humanity unchained. Imagine the claustrophobia, the press of bodies, the heat rising from 100 dancing forms. It was like a pressure cooker for the soul, ready to explode. The flickering oil lamps cast long dancing shadows that distorted faces into grotesque masks of pleasure and abandon. Here, the senator who lectured on public morals by day might be found clutching a slave, their faces smeared with wine, their eyes wide with a strange, intoxicating madness.
The music wasn't the polite lyre and flute of public banquets. No, this was the pounding of timpani, the clash of cymbals, the shrill wail of pipes, a cacophony that burrowed into your bones and demanded movement. You couldn't not dance. Your feet would begin to tap, then your hips would sway, and soon your entire being would be consumed by the rhythm, a hypnotic pulse that echoed the very heartbeat of the earth. It was a siren's call to the wildness within, irresistible and all-consuming. The wine flowed freely, not just from amphorae, but from the very hands of the celebrants, sloshing onto the damp earth, mingling with sweat and tears. This wasn't just fermented grape juice, it was a conduit, a liquid key to unlock the hidden chambers of the mind. People drank until their senses blurred, until the world spun, until the very concept of self dissolved into a collective euphoria. And then came the trances. As the night deepened, fueled by wine and relentless rhythm, individuals would fall into ecstatic states. Some would collapse, others would writhe on the ground, speaking in tongues or uttering prophecies that no one, perhaps not even they themselves, could understand. It was as if the god Bacchus himself had descended from Olympus, breathing his fiery spirit into mortal vessels. These weren't mere drunken stupors. They were seen as divine possessions, moments when the veil between the mortal and the divine was thinnest. You might witness a respected elder suddenly contort their face into a terrifying grimace, their voice deepening, uttering pronouncements that chilled you to the bone, yet filled you with a strange awe. Was it madness, or a glimpse into the true nature of the cosmos? The Bacchanalia offered a complete inversion of Roman society. In the outside world, status was everything. Your toga, your family name, your wealth, your gender, these were the chains that bound you. But in these secret rites, all those chains shattered. Noble women danced with slaves, senators embraced prostitutes, and the rigid social hierarchy dissolved into a swirling, undifferentiated mass of humanity. It was a fleeting glimpse of true freedom, a dangerous, intoxicating taste of anarchy. For a few precious hours, you could be anyone, do anything, shed the suffocating expectations of Roman life. The whispers of scandalous acts, of sexual abandon, of even darker deeds, spread like wildfire through the city, fueling both fear and a desperate longing to join. The secrecy itself was part of the allure. To be initiated into the Bacchanalia was to join an elite club of the enlightened, or perhaps the truly depraved. You had to be invited, sworn to secrecy, and willing to shed your inhibitions at the door. The knowledge that you were part of something forbidden, something that defied the very foundations of the Roman law and morality, only heightened the thrill. It was a delicious secret, a whispered conspiracy against the very fabric of the Republic. Imagine the tension, the anticipation, as you slipped away from your respectable home under the cloak of night, making your way to a hidden entrance, your heart pounding with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Every shadow seemed to hold a secret, every distant sound a warning.
But such wildness could not remain unchecked in a city built on order. The Roman Senate, ever vigilant against anything that threatened the mos maiorum, ancestral custom, eventually caught wind of these escalating rites. The stories that reached their ears were horrifying, not just drunken revelry, but alleged crimes, conspiracies, poisonings, and rampant sexual misconduct. The Bacchanalia was no longer just a party. It was a festering wound on the body politic of Rome. In 186 BCE, the Senate launched a full-scale investigation, a witch hunt that swept through the city like a plague. Informers came forward, confessions were extracted, often under duress, and the scale of the cult shocked even the most jaded senators. The crackdown was brutal. Thousands were arrested, tried, and executed. Men and women, nobles and commoners alike, faced the wrath of the state. The Senate issued the Senatus Consultum de Bacchanalibus, a decree that effectively banned the Bacchanalia throughout Italy. Any remaining cults had to be approved by the Senate, limited in size, and overseen by a magistrate. It was a declaration of war on ecstasy, a desperate attempt to cage the wild spirit that had burst forth. The very mention of Bacchus became synonymous with danger, with subversion, with everything Rome feared. The official narrative was clear. These rites were a threat to the Republic, a breeding ground for immorality and treason. But you have to wonder, was it truly about crime, or was it about control? Was the Senate genuinely concerned about a few drunken orgies? Or were they terrified of the power of collective abandon of a place where social distinctions evaporated and individuals found a freedom that challenged the very authority of the state? Perhaps the greatest threat wasn't the wine or the sex, but the dangerous idea of equality born in the darkness. The Bacchanalia, in its most extreme form, was a direct challenge to the Roman way of life, a chaotic counterpoint to their meticulously structured society. It was a glimpse into the raw, untamed human spirit that even the mightiest empires struggled to contain. And so, the Bacchanalia was driven underground, its open celebrations crushed, its name whispered in hushed tones. But did it truly disappear? Or did it merely mutate, finding new forms, new shadows to hide in, continuing to offer that forbidden taste of liberation to those brave or desperate enough to seek it? The wildness, once unleashed, is never truly tamed. It merely learns to hide in plain sight. This story reminds us that even in the most disciplined and organized societies, there is always a primal urge for chaos, a desire to break free, to dance on the edge of the abyss. And sometimes, just sometimes, that urge finds a way to awaken, even in the heart of the eternal city.
Forget your crisp Merlot or your delicate Chardonnay. Cast aside any notion of a refined, clear liquid swirling in a crystal glass. Roman wine was a beast of a different vintage, a viscous, opaque concoction that clung to the tongue, not merely a beverage, but a gateway. Imagine the first sip, a bewildering assault of flavors, the sharp tang of brine, the fiery kiss of exotic spices, the resinous whisper of pine. And then something else, something utterly indescribable. Your tongue goes numb, a strange, sweet bitterness blooming in your mouth, followed by a sensation of lightness, as if the very air around you had thinned, and your body, once tethered to the earth, began to drift. It was a liquid dream, poured straight from the god's own chalice, promising escape. You feel a subtle shift, a loosening of the mind's grip, the world around you shimmering, colors deepening, sounds becoming a symphony, or perhaps a distant echoing roar. This wasn't just getting tipsy. This was a deliberate ancient alchemy designed to transport you, to unlock doors you never knew existed within your own consciousness. For the Romans, wine was lifeblood, a staple consumed by everyone from the lowliest slave to the most powerful senator. But it was rarely drunk neat. Oh no. Roman wine was thick, often like a concentrated syrup, and almost always diluted with water, sometimes hot, sometimes cold, depending on the season or the desired effect. But dilution was just the beginning. The true magic, or madness, lay in the additives. They mixed in everything. Seawater for a briny kick that you might find shocking today, a taste of the vast, untamed ocean in your cup. Strong, pungent spices like myrrh, saffron, or even pepper, transforming a simple grape ferment into a complex aromatic elixir. Imagine the subtle warmth of cinnamon spreading through your chest, with the earthy notes of ginger dancing on your palate, each spice carefully chosen, not just for flavor, but for its perceived medicinal or spiritual properties. Pine resin, like that found in Greek ritsina, was a common addition, not just for preservation, but for its distinct, almost medicinal bite, a sharp, clean tang that cut through the sweetness. It was a flavor profile that would send a modern sommelier screaming for the hills, a bizarre symphony of tastes that defied conventional understanding. You might find yourself wondering if you were drinking a beverage or a complex herbal remedy, each sip a journey through a landscape of unexpected sensations. But then, you stumble upon the whispers, the darker secrets passed down through ancient texts and archaeological finds. The Romans, in their relentless pursuit of pleasure, spiritual connection, or perhaps just a good night's sleep, experimented with far more potent ingredients. Imagine the ancient vintners, not just grape farmers, but alchemists of the soul, carefully grinding mysterious herbs, their hands stained with the juices of plants that could heal or could kill. Mandrake, with its eerie, human-like roots, was one such addition. You might recall its reputation for pain relief and aphrodisiac qualities. But mandrake also contains powerful alkaloids like scopolamine and atropine, compounds that can induce vivid hallucinations, a sense of detachment, and even amnesia. It was a botanical tightrope walk, where one wrong step could send you tumbling into a terrifying abyss of waking nightmares. The legends surrounding its harvest were equally chilling. They said the root shrieked when pulled from the earth, a sound so lethal it could kill a man. So, naturally, the solution was to tie a dog to the plant and let the poor beast yank it free, while the humans covered their ears, hoping their neighbors wouldn't ask too many questions about the sudden canine silence. This grim ritual, a testament to their desperate desire for its power, hints at the profound respect and fear they held for this plant. It's said that these very properties later made mandrake a secret ingredient in the flying ointments of medieval witches, a strange, enduring legacy from ancient Roman experiments.
And then there was opium. Though not native to Italy, the poppy's potent extract made its way to Rome through bustling trade routes, often from the eastern Mediterranean, particularly Cyprus and Asia Minor. Imagine the subtle, almost imperceptible addition of poppy sap or its derivatives into the wine. It wasn't just about dulling pain after a gladiatorial injury. It was about achieving a profound state of blissful unawareness, a gentle drift into a world without worries. You'd feel your limbs grow heavy, your thoughts slow to a luxurious crawl, the edges of reality
softening into a hazy, comforting blur. It was a velvet cloak for the mind, wrapping you in a warmth that promised oblivion. Was this a conscious pursuit of altered states, or merely an extension of their medical practices, blurring the lines between healing and hedonism? Consider the story of a weary Roman soldier returning from a brutal campaign in Germania. His body aches from old wounds. His mind is haunted by the screams of battle. He seeks out a local physician who offers him a cup of wine, dark and fragrant. As he drinks, the pain in his joints begins to recede. The images of war fade into a soft haze, and for the first time in weeks, he finds a semblance of peace, a quiet, dreamless sleep. This wasn't just medicine. It was a temporary salvation, a gentle hand pulling him back from the brink of despair. Consider the context. A world without modern painkillers, without psychiatric therapy, a world where life was often brutal and short. These altered wines offered a temporary reprieve, a fleeting escape from the harsh realities of empire, war, and disease. For the common citizen, it might have been a way to endure the daily grind, to find a moment of solace after a grueling day in the fields or workshops. For the elite, it was a path to heightened pleasure, a way to chase new sensations when all conventional ones had grown dull, a constant push against the boundaries of experience. The pursuit of altered consciousness was woven into the very fabric of their society, a hidden river flowing beneath the grand aqueducts, nourishing desires both sacred and profane. This wasn't merely about intoxication. It was about transformation, about finding a different way to perceive a world that was often harsh and unforgiving. Picture this: Emperor Nero, a man whose name is synonymous with excess, famous for his convivia, lavish banquets that stretched for hours, sometimes days, blurring the lines between daytime and night, reality and illusion. You can almost see him, reclining on a cushioned couch draped in silk, a golden goblet in his hand, filled with a wine so dark and rich it seemed to absorb the very light. The air around him would be thick with the scent of roasted peacock and exotic perfumes, the murmur of conversation punctuated by the laughter of courtesans and the distant strains of lyres. His eyes, usually sharp with cunning or madness, would be wide, glittering with a strange, otherworldly light as he watched his dancers, perhaps already in their own drug-induced reverie, twirl and sway. His gaze, a predator's gleam, would follow every graceful, hazy movement, lost in a world only he could fully perceive, a private stage where reality bent to his will. Was he truly communing with the muses, finding inspiration for his poetry, his theatrical performances, or simply indulging in a chemical escape from the crushing weight of his own tyranny, the growing whispers of discontent from his Senate? Perhaps these concoctions fueled his notorious cruelty, stripping away the last vestiges of empathy, leaving only the raw, unchecked id of an emperor.
The questions echo through the centuries. Did they truly understand the pharmacological effects of these additions? Or did they simply observe the profound changes in perception, the vivid dreams, the prophetic utterances, and attribute them to divine intervention? Was it a calculated journey into the depths of the psyche, or an accidental stumble into the realm of the gods. Many scholars today lean towards the latter, suggesting that the Romans, through trial and error, through ancient folk wisdom and desperate experimentation, inadvertently stumbled upon a powerful formula. They weren't just brewing wine, they were brewing a kind of liquid enlightenment, or at least a profound, endless trance that offered a temporary, blissful detachment from the mundane. The writings of Pliny the Elder, a Roman naturalist, often detail the various plants and their properties, sometimes with a mix of scientific observation and superstitious belief, hinting at the vast uncatalogued pharmacopoeia they experimented with. Galen, the renowned physician, also documented numerous herbal remedies, some of which likely found their way into these potent brews. This practice wasn't just confined to the elite. While the most exotic and dangerous concoctions might have been reserved for the wealthy, the underlying principle that wine could be more than just a drink permeated all levels of society. Even the common soldier, after a long march or a brutal battle, might find his meager ration of wine infused with herbs to dull the pain and lift his spirits, a crude but effective battlefield medicine. For Roman women facing the perils of childbirth or the discomforts of menstruation, certain wine infusions might have offered a much-needed respite, a gentle numbing of the body and mind, and for the elderly or infirm, struggling with chronic pain or the inevitable decline of age, these fortified wines provided a daily balm, a way to make existence more bearable. It was a universal balm, a liquid comfort in a world that offered little, a silent testament to their ingenuity in the face of suffering. These ancient concoctions dissolved the strict boundaries we now draw between medicine, ritual, and mere recreation, proving that for the Romans, a single cup could serve many masters.
Archaeological evidence further supports these claims. Excavations of Roman villas and city dwellings have uncovered amphorae and drinking vessels with chemical residues that, when analyzed, revealed traces of various herbs, spices, and even psychoactive compounds. These silent witnesses from the past confirm that the Romans were indeed experimenting with their beverages on a scale far beyond simple flavoring. Each shard of pottery, each ancient stain whispers tales of forgotten experiments and altered minds. It's a tangible link to a practice that was both commonplace and profoundly mysterious, hinting at a hidden history of Roman consciousness. Philosophically, the Romans, while valuing reason and order, also recognized the power of altered states. While not as overtly mystical as the Greeks with their Dionysian rites, Roman thinkers often discussed the effects of wine on the mind and spirit. Some might have seen intoxication as a pathway to poetic inspiration, a loosening of the rational mind to allow for creative flow. Others, particularly those influenced by Stoicism, might have viewed excessive indulgence with disdain. Yet even they acknowledged the profound impact wine could have. It was a paradox, a society built on discipline, yet one that embraced the deliberate blurring of reality, a testament to the complex human spirit. They sought not just physical pleasure, but a different kind of truth, a deeper connection to the cosmos, or simply a temporary escape from the burdens of their world. The legacy of these Roman wines is complex. They speak of a people deeply connected to the natural world, willing to experiment, and perhaps surprisingly, open to altering their own consciousness. They remind us that the human desire to transcend reality, to seek out altered states, is as old as civilization itself. And as you consider the depth of their experimentation, the sheer audacity of their concoctions, you can't help but feel a chill. Because in every sip of that ancient, murky wine, there was a hidden universe waiting to be explored, promising either revelation or ruin. It was a key forged in antiquity that could unlock the doors of perception, leading you to places you never thought possible, right there in your very own Roman cup. This story reveals that even in their most seemingly mundane habits, the Romans embraced a wildness that continues to astound us centuries later.
Forget the gleaming marble temples and the thundering legions. Beneath the polished veneer of Roman order, a darker current pulsed, a subterranean river of fear and forbidden power. Imagine a night, moonless and heavy, the kind of oppressive darkness that swallows sound, leaving only the frantic thumping of your own heart. You're deep within the city's ancient bowels, perhaps a forgotten well, its stone walls slick with damp, the air thick with the acrid tang of something burning, something unnatural. A low, guttural chanting begins, a rhythmic whisper that seems to crawl from the very earth itself, wrapping around you like a cold, unseen hand. Flickering candlelight dances across a face contorted in a grimace of intense concentration, revealing eyes that seem to hold the secrets of 1,000 forgotten sorrows. This isn't a priest invoking Jupiter. This is a sorcerer, their fingers stained with blood and ink, meticulously carving symbols onto a thin sheet of lead. You feel a primal chill, a cold dread seeping into your bones, for you are witnessing a curse being forged, a dark pact whispered into the void, a desperate plea for vengeance that will echo through eternity. The Roman Empire, for all its military might and philosophical grandeur, was not immune to the ancient, pervasive grip of magic. In fact, it thrived in the shadows, a parallel universe where fate could be twisted, love could be forced, and enemies could be brought to their knees by unseen forces. People spoke in hushed tones of witches and soothsayers, not just the official augurs who read the flight of birds, but those who dealt in the truly forbidden. These were individuals who knew the secret language of plants, the hidden power of stones, and the chilling names of the infernal gods. They were the ones you sought when justice failed you, when love was unrequited, or when a rival's success became unbearable. Their workshops, often tucked away in the grimy back alleys of Subura, or hidden beneath the bustling forum, were like spider webs spun from desperation and dark desires. They worked with ingredients that would make your stomach churn: dried animal parts, graveyard dust, human hair, and most chillingly, specific herbs. These weren't your garden variety parsley or mint. Oh no, these were plants steeped in folklore, whispered to possess malevolent spirits, or simply a potent chemical kick. Imagine the pungent, almost sickeningly sweet aroma of belladonna, that strange scent as if an ancient curse itself hung in the air, or the earthy, narcotic scent of henbane as it was crushed into a powder, ready to be mixed into a potion or smeared onto a charm. You wouldn't want to touch these. Their very presence seemed to hum with a dark energy, promising power, but demanding a heavy price. Each leaf, each root was a tiny, silent weapon, waiting to be unleashed.
The most infamous tools of this dark trade were the deficciones, or curse tablets. These were thin sheets of lead, sometimes tin or bronze, upon which a curse was meticulously scratched, often in tiny, almost illegible letters. Imagine the effort, the intense focus, as the sorcerer's stylus bit into the soft metal, each stroke imbued with venomous intent. The curses were specific, terrifyingly so. They might call upon underworld deities like Pluto, Proserpina, or the Furies to bind an enemy's tongue in court, to make a rival charioteer stumble, or to cause a lover to waste away with longing for the caster. These were not polite requests. They were desperate, furious demands, etched in cold metal and fueled by burning hatred. You see, these tablets weren't just written, they were activated. They were often pierced with a nail, symbolizing the binding of the victim, then folded or rolled up tightly, and then they were hidden. Imagine the ritual of concealment, buried in a grave, to draw on the power of the dead, thrown into a sacred well or spring to sink into the underworld, or secreted beneath the threshold of an enemy's home, so they would literally walk over their own doom every day. Each act of burial was a silent prayer to the dark forces, a chilling commitment to vengeance. The cold, damp earth, the murky waters, the forgotten corners of ancient buildings became silent accomplices in these acts of magical aggression. And here's where the veil between the supernatural and the scientific begins to blur, leaving you to wonder, were these curses genuinely effective through some mystical force? Or was it the chilling power of suggestion, amplified by subtle, insidious means? Many scholars today theorize that some of these magical preparations included hallucinogenic substances. Imagine a victim, already paranoid about a rival, perhaps unknowingly exposed to a small dose of belladonna in their wine or food. Their senses would become distorted, their thoughts racing, their fears magnified. They might see shadows move, hear whispers in the wind, or feel a strange, debilitating weakness. Their own mind, poisoned by fear and chemistry, would become the ultimate weapon against them. Consider a Roman merchant named Lucius, whose once thriving pottery business was slowly being strangled by a ruthless competitor, Gaius. Lucius, desperate, and seeing his family's future crumble, sought out a whispered-about sorceress in the grimy alleys near the Circus Maximus. He paid her a hefty sum, his hands trembling as he handed over the coins. Days later, he found a small, rolled-up lead tablet buried just outside Gaius's shop, inscribed with Gaius's name and a plea to the infernal gods to bind his tongue and ruin his trade. Lucius dismissed it at first, a foolish superstition. But then a strange malaise set in for Gaius. He felt a constant fatigue. His voice cracked during negotiations, and his mind seemed to cloud over at crucial moments. His business faltered. Was it the curse taking hold? Or was it the subtle, insidious effect of a hallucinogen slipped into his daily bread by a desperate Lucius, making his deepest fears manifest as physical reality? The line between a genuine hex
and a chemically induced paranoia becomes terrifyingly thin, a psychological tightrope walk over an abyss of self-doubt. Lucius, watching from afar, felt a grim satisfaction, mixed with a chilling fear of the power he had unleashed.
Archaeologists digging through the ruins of Pompeii, the baths of Bath, and countless Roman sites across the empire have unearthed thousands upon thousands of these curse tablets. Imagine the sheer volume, the silent testimony to a society obsessed with influencing fate, often through malevolent means. Each defixio is a chilling snapshot of ancient grievances, a charioteer cursing his opponent's horses, a lover seeking to bind an unfaithful partner, a shopkeeper wishing ill upon a rival. These aren't just artifacts, they are echoes of ancient fury, frozen in lead, waiting to be rediscovered. The sheer number suggests that this wasn't a fringe practice. It was a common, if clandestine, aspect of Roman life, a dark undercurrent to their otherwise ordered existence. But not all magic was aimed at destruction. Sometimes a broken heart sought gentler enchantments. Imagine a young Roman woman, her eyes brimming with a fragile hope, secretly mixing dried rose petals and a strand of her beloved's hair into a specially brewed wine, whispering ancient incantations under flickering candlelight, praying his heart would forever belong to her. These were venena, not always poisons, but love charms designed to ignite rekindled passion or bind an unrequited affection. It was a desperate gamble, a fragile prayer to Venus, hoping magic could mend what fate had broken. You might find these charms hidden beneath a lover's pillow or buried near their favorite walking path, tiny silent pleas for affection. And then there were the protective charms, worn by everyone from the mightiest general to the humblest child. You'd find amulets worn around necks, like the fascinum, a phallic symbol believed to ward off the evil eye, hung in doorways, or even worn as pendants. Children, especially, were adorned with bulla, a locket containing protective amulets worn until they came of age. These were tiny shields against an unseen world, a silent promise of safety in a dangerous existence. Protective spells were recited to ward off ill intentions or to ensure good fortune in business or battle. The fear of magic was as potent as the belief in its power, creating a constant tension, a sense that unseen forces were always at play, influencing daily life, demanding vigilance. It was a shadow dance between light and dark, a constant negotiation with the unseen. This pervasive belief shaped their interactions, their anxieties, and even their legal systems, which sometimes struggled to define and punish magical offenses. The Roman authorities, for their part, had a complicated relationship with magic. While certain forms of divination were sanctioned, like the augurs who read omens from birds, private magic, especially that sought to harm others or influence political outcomes, was strictly forbidden and often punishable by death. They understood the power of belief, the way fear could ripple through a population, and they sought to control it. Yet the very existence of these laws and the severity of the punishments only highlights how deeply ingrained magical practices were within society. It was a cat and mouse game between state control and the primal human desire to bend reality to one's will. Imagine a chilling scene in the Roman Forum, perhaps near the Temple of Saturn, where the Republic's treasury was held. Whispers abound that a curse tablet, aimed at a powerful senator, was secretly buried beneath its very steps, hoping to bind his wealth or bring him ruin. Such an act, if discovered, would be met with swift and brutal justice.
Consider the case of a woman accused of veneficium, a term that could mean poisoning, but also magical harm. You might witness her trial in the Basilica Julia, the air thick with tension. The accusers would present their evidence, perhaps a strange effigy found in her home, or a neighbor's testimony about her unusual herbs. The judge, a stern Roman magistrate, would grapple with the ambiguous nature of the crime. Was it a physical act or a perceived magical one? The fear in the courtroom would be palpable, a testament to how deeply magic, even when denied, permeated their legal consciousness. The very air crackled with unspoken dread, a silent acknowledgement of powers beyond the law's reach. So, the next time you picture ancient Rome, don't just see the gladiators and the emperors. Look closer, into the shadows of the bustling markets, the quiet corners of the villas, and the depths of the ancient wells. Listen for the faint whispers carried on the night wind, the unseen hands carving desperate pleas into lead. Because in the Eternal City, magic wasn't just a myth. It was a terrifying, tangible force, a hidden web of desires and fears that bound its citizens to the very edge of the void. It reminds you that even the most rational of empires harbored a profound, almost primal belief in the unseen, a wildness that continues to haunt us centuries later.
The gates clang open. A deafening roar erupts from 80,000 throats, a sound that hits you like a physical blow, stripping the air from your lungs. The blinding Roman sun, reflecting off the white marble of the Colosseum, turns the world into a shimmering, hostile blur. You smell dust, sweat, and the metallic tang of dried blood from yesterday's carnage. Your heart, a frantic drum against your ribs, threatens to burst through your chest. Fear, cold and sharp as a gladiator's blade, tries to paralyze you, to root you to the spot. But then, something shifts. A strange warmth spreads through your veins, a dulling of the senses, a sudden, terrifying clarity. The roar of the crowd becomes a distant hum, the fear a dull echo. Your muscles, once trembling, now feel like coiled steel, ready to unleash a storm. You are no longer a man. You are a weapon, honed for death, fueled by something far older and darker than mere courage. This isn't just a fight. It's a dance with destiny. And you feel an unnatural calm settle over you, a chilling readiness to kill or be killed. You've seen the movies, read the tales, gladiators, those titans of the arena facing certain death with a stoic grimace, driven by honor, by the roar of the crowd, by the slim hope of freedom. But have you ever truly wondered how a farmer, a slave, or a condemned criminal could transform into such a fearless, almost inhuman fighting machine? How did they push past the primal instinct for survival, the agonizing pain of a sword cut, the crushing weight of impending doom? The truth, whispered in the grimy shadows of the ludus, the gladiator school, might be far more unsettling than any epic poem.
It's said that glory wasn't the only potion they drank. For centuries, scholars have known about the gladiators' unique diet. They were often called hordeari, barley eaters, for their primary sustenance. This wasn't just any barley. It was often boiled into a thick, nutrient-rich gruel, a dense, almost medicinal porridge designed to pack on weight and build muscle. And of course, they drank beer. Not the crisp, clear lagers of today, but a heavy, unfiltered brew thick with sediment, almost like liquid bread. This beer wasn't just for mild intoxication. It was a caloric powerhouse, providing energy and, yes, a slight numbing effect. It was their daily fuel, a muddy elixir that built their bodies and perhaps, subtly, dulled the edges of their fear. But was that all? Was this simple diet enough to forge men into the unyielding instruments of death that captivated Rome? The whispers persist, passed down through fragmented texts and ancient folklore, of something more, something darker. Imagine a gladiator hours before his fight, his stomach churning with dread, his hands clammy. A trainer, a grizzled veteran with eyes that have seen too much blood, offers him a small clay cup. The liquid inside is dark, viscous, with an earthy, bitter scent. It's not just beer. It's a secret concoction, a courage potion, designed to strip away fear and amplify ferocity. Some scholars suggest these mixtures might have contained potent herbal extracts, perhaps mandrake, the same root we discussed earlier, known for its pain-numbing and hallucinogenic properties. A small dose could induce a feeling of detachment, a strange euphoria, making the roar of the crowd feel distant, the glint of the opponent's blade less terrifying. It was a chemical shield, protecting the mind from the horrors it was about to face, turning a man into a ghost of himself. Or perhaps opium, the ancient world's most powerful painkiller. Imagine a gladiator already nursing old wounds, his body a map of scars. A draught of wine laced with opium could dull the searing agony of a fresh cut, allowing him to fight on, seemingly impervious to pain, a terrifying specter of endurance. His movements, once hampered by agony, would become fluid, deadly, a dance of death unburdened by suffering. This wasn't about enhancing strength, but about suppressing weakness, about silencing the body's natural cries for mercy. You might see a gladiator take a grievous wound, yet continue to fight with an almost supernatural calm, his eyes wide and vacant, a chilling testament to the brew flowing through his veins.
But the most macabre, the most wilder of these rumored practices involves something truly unsettling: the consumption of gladiator blood. Yes, you heard that right. Ancient texts and archaeological evidence suggest a chilling belief among some Romans that the blood of a fallen gladiator, especially one who died bravely, possessed a potent vitality. It was believed to transmit strength, courage, and even to cure ailments like epilepsy. Imagine the scene: the arena floor slick with fresh blood. As a gladiator falls, the crowd roars, and then a darker ritual begins. Perhaps a desperate individual seeking a cure would rush forward, collecting the warm, still pulsing blood in a small vial. Or perhaps, in the grim confines of the ludus, a portion of the blood from a freshly killed comrade was mixed into a drink offered to the surviving gladiators. It was a gruesome sacrament, a desperate attempt to absorb the very essence of courage and vitality from the dying, a chilling echo of ancient human sacrifice. This practice wasn't just a desperate folk remedy.
It was deeply rooted in Roman beliefs about the transfer of power and spirit. The gladiator, facing death with such ferocity, was seen as embodying a raw, untamed energy. To consume his blood was to absorb that power, to become a part of his terrifying strength. You might find yourself recoiling at the thought, but to the Romans, it was a logical, if brutal, extension of their fascination with death and spectacle. The arena was not just a stage, it was an altar where lives were offered and power was consumed, both literally and figuratively. Beyond the mysterious potions, the gladiators underwent a brutal psychological conditioning. From the moment they entered the ludus, their old identities were stripped away. They were no longer farmers or slaves. They were gladiators, destined for the sand. Discipline was absolute, enforced with whips and chains. They were taught to fight, of course, but also to accept their fate, to face death without flinching. The constant presence of death, the sight of their comrades falling, forged a grim acceptance. Their lives became a rehearsal for their final performance, a relentless march toward an inevitable curtain call. The trainers, the lanistae, were not just combat instructors. They were masters of the mind, breaking down their recruits and rebuilding them as instruments of spectacle. The roar of the crowd itself played a crucial role. Imagine standing in the center of the Colosseum, the sun beating down, 80,000 voices screaming for blood. It's a terrifying, overwhelming sound. But for the gladiator, perhaps it became a strange kind of fuel. The collective energy, the sheer intensity of the moment, could push a man beyond his limits, overriding the instinct for self-preservation. The crowd's hunger became a perverse source of strength, transforming fear into a desperate, animalistic will to survive. You might see a gladiator, seemingly defeated, suddenly rise, fueled by a surge of adrenaline, perhaps a strange drug-induced euphoria, or simply the overwhelming pressure of the moment.
While direct, undeniable archaeological proof of specific courage drugs given to gladiators remains elusive, the historical context and the Roman fascination with both herbal remedies and gruesome rituals make these whispers chillingly plausible. We know from Roman medical texts, like those of Pliny the Elder and Galen, that they were well versed in the properties of various plants for pain relief and altering states, and the practice of consuming gladiator blood for epilepsy was documented, suggesting a broader belief in its power. The absence of a smoking gun doesn't mean the gun wasn't fired. It simply means the smoke has long since cleared, leaving only lingering questions. This story of the gladiators' courage potions forces us to confront a disturbing truth. The human capacity to endure, to perform, to face the unimaginable can sometimes be amplified by means that blur the line between natural courage and external manipulation. It makes you wonder about the true nature of heroism in the arena. Was it pure, unadulterated bravery? Or was it a terrifying cocktail of psychological conditioning, brutal training, and perhaps a dark, secret draught that stripped away fear, leaving only the primal will to survive? The sands of the Colosseum hold many secrets, and the echoes of those ancient screams still carry the chilling question: how much of that courage was truly their own?
The pain is a living thing, a searing, relentless fire in your gut, consuming every thought, every breath. You lie on a rough cot in a dimly lit room, the air thick with the metallic tang of blood and the cloying sweetness of something vaguely medicinal. Your body, a vessel of torment, trembles with exhaustion, each muscle screaming in protest. Despair, a cold, heavy blanket, threatens to smother the last flickering ember of hope. You've tried everything: prayers to Asclepius, offerings at the temple, even the crude remedies of the local wise woman. Nothing. The fever burns, the cramps twist, and you feel yourself slipping, inch by agonizing inch, towards the abyss. A figure looms over you, a Roman physician, his face grim, etched with the weight of countless life and death decisions. His hands surprisingly gentle as he holds a small clay cup to your lips. The liquid inside is dark, murky, giving off a pungent, almost acrid aroma and makes your nose wrinkle instinctively. You hesitate, your mind screaming in protest, a desperate, primal urge to reject the unknown. But the pain is a more insistent master. You swallow. The taste is bitter, incredibly so, like crushed herbs and damp earth, followed by a strange tingling numbness that spreads across your tongue, down your throat. Then the world begins to tilt. The edges of the room soften, the physician's face blurs, and the searing fire in your gut begins to recede, replaced by a profound, heavy calm. Your eyelids grow impossibly heavy. Your body sinks into the rough fabric beneath you, and you feel yourself drifting, not into sleep, but into something far deeper, far stranger. This wasn't just medicine, it was a journey, a forced voyage into the uncharted waters of your own mind, where reality itself was a suggestion, and hope a fragile, intoxicating promise. You've probably heard of Roman engineering marvels, the aqueducts, the roads, the baths, and yes, their medicine, in many ways, was surprisingly advanced for its time. They understood basic hygiene, performed complex surgeries with impressive, if terrifying, tools, and even had public health initiatives like clean water. But beneath this veneer of rationality, a wilder, more experimental side of Roman healing pulsed, a side that often blurred the lines between therapeutic relief and outright altered states. People whispered about physicians and healers who weren't just curing ailments, they were unlocking hidden dimensions of consciousness, sometimes intentionally, sometimes by accident. It was a medical frontier where every potion held the promise of both salvation and a terrifying, unknown trip, a gamble with your very soul. Imagine stepping into a Roman apothecary, not unlike the ones you might see depicted in historical dramas, but with a far more potent, almost mystical atmosphere. The air would be thick with the scent of dried herbs hanging from the rafters, pungent valerian, earthy chamomile, but also the sharp, almost intoxicating aroma of more mysterious plants. You might see jars filled with strange powders, murky liquids, and dried animal parts, all waiting to be transformed into remedies. The physician, often a man of both science and superstition, would carefully select his ingredients, guided by ancient texts, folk wisdom, and perhaps a touch of intuition. His hands, nimble and practiced, moved like a silent prayer over the raw materials of life and death, each gesture a whispered plea to the gods.
You might catch a glimpse of the tension in his eyes, the subtle furrow of his brow as he measured a potent powder, knowing that a single grain too much could mean the difference between healing and oblivion. Did he fully trust these ancient formulas, or was there a flicker of doubt, a silent prayer that his intuition, not just his knowledge, would guide his hand?
One of the most powerful tools in their arsenal was opium, the potent extract from the poppy. You heard of its pain-killing properties, but in Roman hands, it was far more than just an analgesic. After a brutal gladiatorial injury, a soldier's shattered leg, or the agonizing pain of a chronic illness like the relentless bone-aching grip of malaria, opium was the ultimate solace. Imagine the relief washing over you as the bitter liquid takes hold, the world's sharp edges blurring, the relentless throbbing in your body receding into a distant hum. But it wasn't just for pain. Opium was also used as a powerful sedative, inducing a deep, dreamless sleep, or sometimes a vivid, almost prophetic slumber. It was a velvet curtain drawn over suffering, offering a temporary blissful escape from the harsh symphony of existence, a fleeting glimpse of peace. Physicians like Galen and Pliny the Elder wrote extensively about its uses, detailing its efficacy for everything from persistent coughs to debilitating stomach ailments, always aware of its profound effects on the mind, its ability to quiet the loudest anxieties. Then there was mandrake, that infamous root with its eerie, human-like shape. We've talked about its hallucinogenic properties when mixed with wine, but in medicine, it was a double-edged sword. It was a powerful anesthetic for surgery, allowing a patient to slip into a deep, almost death-like trance, sparing them the agony of the knife. Imagine the terror of facing a surgeon's blade in a world without modern anesthesia. The mandrake potion, bitter and cloying, would be your only hope. You drink it, your body growing heavy, your vision blurring, and then a descent into darkness, sometimes accompanied by strange, swirling visions or disembodied voices. It was a forced journey into the void, a terrifying but necessary surrender to the unknown, a desperate gamble for oblivion. But the dosage was a razor's edge. Too much, and the sleep could become eternal. Too little, and you'd awaken to unimaginable pain, a betrayal of the very hope you clung to. Roman medicine also embraced more unconventional methods. Take the castor bean, for instance. Known today for its oil, the beans themselves are highly toxic, but Roman healers used them as powerful emetics and purgatives. Imagine being given a concoction made from these beans, designed to cleanse your body of illness. The ensuing hours would be a violent symphony of nausea and relentless purging, a desperate, agonizing attempt to expel the sickness. Your body would become a battlefield, racked by convulsions, a desperate war waged against an unseen enemy within, leaving you weak, but hopefully cleansed. It was a brutal, but often practiced form of detoxification, believed to rid the body of harmful humors that caused disease.
And then there are the truly bizarre remedies that make you question everything you thought you knew about ancient healing. Some Roman texts suggest the use of beneficial bacteria from pigeon intestines to treat certain ailments. Yes, you heard that right. Pigeon gut bacteria. While it sounds utterly repulsive to our modern sensibilities, it hints at an early, albeit crude, understanding of probiotics long before the term existed. Imagine a Roman patient, desperate for a cure, willingly consuming such a concoction, putting their faith in the strange wisdom of their healer. It was a leap of faith into the unknown, a desperate hope clinging to the most unlikely of cures, a testament to the lengths they would go to survive. These practices highlight a medical landscape where empirical observation mixed freely with superstition and a willingness to try almost anything.
Consider the relentless, skull-splitting agony of a Roman headache, a pain so intense it makes you want to tear your own head apart. For such torment, some healers resorted to a truly primal remedy, a fresh piece of oxhide, still warm, still pulsing with residual life, placed directly onto your throbbing forehead. The belief was that the warmth and life force from the animal's blood would draw out the pain, absorbing it into the hide. It was a raw, visceral connection to the earth, a desperate attempt to transfer suffering from one living being to another, a silent plea for relief. You might feel the rough texture of the hide against your skin, smell the faint metallic scent of fresh blood, and hope against all logic that this bizarre ritual would finally bring you peace. And what about the insidious creep of intestinal diseases, the constant threat of dysentery in a world without modern sanitation? Some Roman healers, in their quest for a cure, turned to an unexpected ally, a specific type of moldy fungus found growing in damp, dark places, perhaps on decaying wood or even stale bread. While they couldn't have understood the concept of penicillin, they observed that certain molds seemed to have curative properties when applied to wounds or ingested in small amounts. It was a blind stumble into the future of medicine, a crude, accidental discovery of nature's hidden antibiotics, long before Fleming. You might be given a small, bitter piece of this fungus to chew, its earthy taste a minor discomfort compared to the relentless grip of disease. But the most intriguing question remains. Were some of these powerful concoctions intentionally designed to induce prophetic dreams or spiritual experiences for the Roman elite? Imagine a wealthy patrician, plagued by anxieties about the future of his business or the favor of the gods, seeking not just a cure for the body, but for the soul. He seeks out a specialized healer, not for a physical ailment, but for a glimpse into the unseen, a direct message from the divine. He's given a carefully measured dose of a mandrake-infused wine, or perhaps a subtle opium blend. As he drifts into a deep slumber, his mind, freed from the constraints of waking reality, might conjure vivid symbolic dreams. These weren't just nightmares. They were seen as divine messages, whispered secrets from the cosmos, delivered directly to his sleeping mind, guiding his future. The physician,
acting as an interpreter of these chemically induced visions, would then translate the dreams, offering guidance or reassurance, solidifying his own power and mystique. This blurred boundary between medicine and altered consciousness was not unique to Rome, but they certainly embraced it with a practical, almost clinical approach. The Roman physician wasn't just a healer, he was often a gatekeeper to altered states, a guide through the labyrinth of the mind. Was it a lack of precise measurement leading to accidental trips? Or was there a deliberate, unspoken understanding that certain ailments of the spirit, certain anxieties of the soul, could only be addressed by temporarily detaching from reality? The answer remains shrouded in the mists of time, a tantalizing secret whispered by the ancient texts, a testament to their daring. In many cases, healing was not just about the potion, it was about the ritual, the faith. Imagine the physician, his face solemn, not only administering the bitter drought, but also murmuring ancient incantations, drawing protective symbols on your chest, or offering a silent prayer to the gods of healing. You, the patient, would cling to every word, every gesture, believing that the divine power was as crucial as the herbal remedy itself. It was a symphony of science and spirit, a holistic approach where faith was as potent an ingredient as any herb. This blend of the practical and the mystical was deeply ingrained in Roman thought, reflecting a world where the gods were never far from human affairs.
Roman medicine itself wasn't a monolithic entity. It was a vibrant, often contentious landscape of different schools and philosophies. You had the Hippocratic tradition, emphasizing observation and natural healing, often focusing on diet and lifestyle. Then there were the empiricists, who valued practical experience and observed results over theoretical knowledge, often experimenting with new remedies. And the Methodists, who believed in simpler, more universal principles of disease. It was a bustling marketplace of ideas, where rival theories clashed, and new discoveries emerged from a crucible of debate and desperate need. This diversity meant that what one physician might prescribe, another might condemn as quackery, adding another layer of complexity and uncertainty to the patient's journey. Archaeological digs continue to unearth fascinating clues. Residues found in ancient Roman medical instruments and storage jars hinted complex herbal mixtures. The writings of medical giants like Celsus, who detailed surgical procedures, also mention various herbal remedies, some with known psychoactive properties. These aren't just dry historical facts. They are tangible echoes of a world where healing was an adventure, a daring blend of science, superstition, and a willingness to push the boundaries of consciousness. It makes you wonder, if you lived in that time, facing a debilitating illness or a crushing injury, would you have dared to drink the murky concoction, to surrender to the strange, intoxicating promise of a Roman cure? The choice was stark: endure the agony, or embark on a terrifying, unpredictable journey into the wild, untamed territories of your own mind, a gamble with your very existence. And perhaps that was the ultimate gamble of Roman healing, a testament to their enduring wildness.
The air is thick, not with smoke, but with a palpable tension, a hushed anticipation that hums beneath your skin. You stand in a subterranean chamber carved from the very bedrock beneath Rome, its walls damp and cold, illuminated only by the flickering, dancing shadows cast by oil lamps. The scent is ancient, a mix of damp earth, unidentifiable incense, and something else, something subtly sweet and cloying that tickles the back of your throat.
A low, rhythmic chant begins, a drone that vibrates through your very bones, building in intensity, pulling you deeper into the darkness. You feel the press of bodies around you, unseen faces, all breathing the same charged air, all waiting. Then a cup is pressed into your hand, its rim rough against your lips. The liquid within is murky, with an earthy, bitter taste that makes your stomach clench. You swallow, and for a moment, nothing. Then a warmth spreads, a tingling behind your eyes, and the shadows on the walls begin to writhe, to twist into impossible shapes. The chanting swells, becoming a chorus of disembodied voices echoing from the very fabric of the stone. This isn't just a ritual, it's a descent, a forced awakening into a reality far stranger than any dream, a journey into the very heart of the cosmos, guided by ancient, forbidden knowledge. Beyond the grand public temples dedicated to Jupiter, Mars, and Venus, beyond the state-sanctioned festivals and the orderly sacrifices, lay a hidden Rome. This was the Rome of secret cults, of whispered mysteries, of clandestine gatherings where seekers yearned for a deeper connection, a personal revelation that the official pantheon simply couldn't offer. You see, the public religion was about civic duty, about maintaining the pax deorum, the peace of the gods, for the good of the state. But for the individual soul, hungry for meaning, for immortality, for a glimpse behind the veil of existence, something more profound was needed. These mystery cults were the spiritual underground, a network of hidden paths leading to enlightenment, or perhaps to madness, depending on the guide. Among the most famous were the Eleusinian mysteries, imported from Greece, promising initiates a blessed afterlife. While the exact rituals were sworn to secrecy under penalty of death, whispers have always persisted about a sacred drink, the kykeon. Imagine this, a concoction made from barley and mint, but with a crucial secret ingredient. Many scholars now believe this ingredient was likely ergot, a fungus that grows on barley and contains psychoactive alkaloids similar to LSD. You drink it not for pleasure, but for a profound, transformative experience. The world would ripple, colors would intensify, and the very air would seem to throb with unseen energy. It was a direct line to the divine, a forced opening of the mind's eye, promising visions that would forever alter your perception of life and death, a cosmic key turning in a hidden lock. Then there was the cult of Mithras, a secretive, all-male mystery religion popular among Roman soldiers. Their temples, called Mithraea, were typically underground, dark, cave-like spaces, deliberately designed to evoke a sense of primordial mystery. Imagine the recruits, hardened legionaries, stripped of their armor, gathered in this dim, sacred space. While the focus was on Mithras slaying the cosmic bull, symbolizing creation, the rituals were complex and involved elaborate feasts. Some historians speculate that certain plants or fungi might have been consumed during these rites, perhaps to enhance the sense of camaraderie, to deepen the shared spiritual experience, or to prepare the initiates for the 7 grueling stages of initiation. The very air in these underground sanctuaries would be thick with unspoken power, a silent promise of transcendent truth, a taste of the divine on your tongue. Beyond the well-known cults, the Roman world teemed with smaller, more obscure sects, each with its own path to enlightenment, often involving equally mysterious botanical aids. Imagine these lesser-known groups meeting in secluded groves outside the city or in forgotten corners of sprawling villas. Here, the sacred plants might shift. Perhaps certain mushrooms, their caps speckled with otherworldly colors, gathered from deep, damp forests, or wild, dark-flowered plants, their petals a sinister purple, believed to hold the key to prophetic visions. These were the true alchemists of the spirit, experimenting with nature's most potent secrets, pushing the boundaries of human experience with every bitter draught. They sought not just altered states, but specific types of insight, believing certain plants could unlock particular cosmic truths, or even reveal glimpses of the future. Imagine the initiation process. You've been chosen, or perhaps you've sought out this path yourself, driven by a gnawing emptiness, a desire for something more. Take, for instance, a woman named Livia, a patrician's wife, whose life of luxury felt like a gilded cage. The public rituals left her cold, her soul aching for a connection beyond the mundane. Or perhaps a grizzled veteran, Marcus, haunted by the ghosts of battles fought in distant lands, seeking solace not in wine, but in a truth that transcended the horrors he had witnessed. You're led into a dark room, blindfolded, your senses heightened by fear and anticipation. You hear the hushed whispers of the initiates, the rhythmic breathing of the priests. Then the blindfold is removed, and you're confronted by flickering torches, strange symbols painted on the walls, and the faces of your fellow seekers, their eyes wide with a mixture of terror and ecstasy. You're given the sacred draught, its taste earthy and bitter, and as it takes hold, the room begins to breathe. The walls seem to undulate, the shadows stretch and twist, and the chanting becomes a chorus of disembodied voices speaking directly to your soul. Your mind becomes a kaleidoscope of swirling colors and impossible geometries, a terrifying but exhilarating descent into the very fabric of reality, a universe unfolding behind your eyelids.
This wasn't about simple intoxication, like a drunken night at a convivium. This was a profound, often terrifying, spiritual journey. The goal was epopeia, a direct personal vision of the divine, a moment of true enlightenment. For Livia, the visions might be of ancient goddesses, their faces radiant, speaking directly to her, offering solace and purpose that her earthly life lacked. For Marcus, the horrors of war might be replayed, but this time he might see them through a lens of cosmic understanding, finding a strange peace in the chaos. You might confront your deepest fears, relive past traumas, or experience a sense of cosmic unity, a feeling of being connected to everything and everyone. The priests, guiding you through this altered state, would be masters of suggestion, their words shaping your visions, steering your experience towards a predetermined spiritual outcome. They were not just spiritual leaders, they were psychological architects, building bridges to the divine within your own mind, carefully sculpting your very perception of truth. But the secrecy was paramount.
To reveal the mysteries was to invite divine wrath and, more immediately, the brutal justice of the Roman state. The Senate, ever wary of anything that could undermine public order or challenge their authority, viewed these secret cults with deep suspicion. The Bacchanalia crackdown was a stark reminder of what happened when such practices spiraled out of control. So, these cults operated in the deepest shadows, their members bound by unbreakable oaths, their rituals hidden from prying eyes. The very air around these hidden sanctuaries would hum with unspoken secrets, a palpable tension of forbidden knowledge, a constant dance with danger. Consider the psychological impact on an initiate. After experiencing such profound visions, such a direct encounter with what they believed to be the divine, how could they ever return to the mundane world unchanged? The ordinary anxieties of Roman life, politics, social status, daily struggles would seem trivial in comparison to the cosmic truths they had glimpsed. This sense of profound transformation, of having been touched by the gods, would bind them fiercely to their fellow initiates, creating a powerful, unbreakable bond of shared experience. Their lives became a perpetual echo of that sacred journey, a constant striving to maintain the clarity found in the depths of their altered minds, a burden and a blessing. Returning to the bustling forum, the cacophony of daily life, the world would seem muted, colors less vibrant, sounds less sharp. You would carry a new weight, a secret knowledge that no one outside your cult could ever truly comprehend, a silent understanding that set you apart.
And what of the powerful, the elite, those who held the reins of Roman power? While officially condemning such secret rites, whispers persisted that even within the highest echelons of Roman society, certain senators or powerful generals secretly sought out these cults. Imagine a grizzled general, his hands still stained with the blood of conquered lands, seeking not just spiritual enlightenment, but perhaps a hidden advantage. Would he truly believe in the visions, or would he merely seek to exploit them, to gain prophetic insights that could determine the fate of a battle or the outcome of a crucial election? The allure of forbidden knowledge, of a direct line to cosmic truth, was a temptation even the most hardened Roman politician found difficult to resist, a secret weapon in the endless game of power. The very idea that a powerful figure might be making decisions based on drug-induced visions rather than cold, hard strategy is a chilling thought, blurring the lines between statesmanship and madness. Archaeological discoveries continue to shed light on these hidden worlds. The remains of Mithraea have been found beneath bustling Roman cities, complete with altars, symbolic carvings, and even remnants of ritual meals. While direct chemical evidence of psychoactive substances is hard to preserve over millennia, the consistent patterns of ritual use, the descriptions in ancient texts, and the known properties of certain plants strongly suggest their role. Each unearthed artifact, each cryptic inscription is a tantalizing clue, a breadcrumb trail leading us deeper into the heart of these ancient mysteries, a silent testament to their desperate search for meaning. This story reveals a Rome far more complex and spiritually adventurous than the one often portrayed in history books. It shows a society where, despite the emphasis on logic and order, there was a profound yearning for the mystical, a willingness to explore the furthest reaches of human consciousness. These secret cults, with their hallucinogenic rituals, offered a radical alternative to conventional faith, a direct,
visceral experience of the divine. They were the ultimate spiritual rebels, seeking enlightenment not through prayer and sacrifice alone, but through a daring plunge into the wild, untamed landscapes of the mind, a journey that promised everything and demanded all. And as you contemplate their journey, you can't help but wonder, what truths did they truly uncover in those dark, smoke-filled chambers? Truths that perhaps we are only just beginning to understand.
The air, thick and cloying, hangs heavy with the scent of jasmine and roasted peacock, mingling with something sharper, something subtly sweet and medicinal. You stand on a mosaic floor, cool beneath your sandaled feet, in a villa nestled high above the Bay of Naples, where the distant shimmer of Vesuvius offers a silent, ominous backdrop. The laughter here is not the boisterous roar of the common folk. It's a tinkling, almost brittle sound, echoing from mouths stained purple with Falernian wine. Bodies recline on couches draped in silk, their faces flushed, eyes glazed with a mixture of pleasure and profound, almost terrifying boredom. A slave, silent as a shadow, offers a golden goblet, its contents dark and viscous, promising not just intoxication, but oblivion. You feel an unsettling thrill, a sense of forbidden knowledge, as you witness the true face of Roman power, stripped bare of its toga and its public virtue. This isn't just a party. It's a living, breathing testament to excess, a desperate, endless pursuit of sensation, where the very fabric of reality begins to fray, threatening to unravel everything you thought you knew. You've heard the stories of Roman luxury, of grand feasts and lavish homes, but the life of the Roman elite, particularly during the late Republic and early Empire, transcended mere opulence. It was a relentless, almost desperate pursuit of sensation, a constant push against the boundaries of pleasure and propriety. For those who possessed unimaginable wealth and power, the ordinary joys of life quickly paled. What do you do when you have everything? You seek out the uncommon, the forbidden, the experiences that promise to ignite a spark in a soul dulled by endless indulgence. Their lives were a gilded cage, and they rattled the bars with every outrageous act, hoping to find a way out, or at least a new thrill that could momentarily silence the existential hum of their privilege. Take Lucullus, for instance, the legendary general whose name became synonymous with extravagant dining. His feasts were not merely meals, they were theatrical productions, sensory assaults designed to overwhelm and delight. Try to imagine being invited to one of his dinners. The dining room, perhaps named Apollo, would be lit by hundreds of oil lamps, casting a warm, golden glow on frescoes depicting gods and heroes. The air would hum with the murmur of cultured conversation, punctuated by the soft strains of lyres and flutes. But then the food would arrive, not just roasted meats and fresh vegetables, but exotic delicacies flown in from the furthest corners of the empire. Flamingo tongues, peacock brains, live dormice stuffed with nuts and honey, sea urchins from distant shores. Each dish was a tiny, edible empire, a testament to Lucullus's boundless resources and even more boundless appetite for the extraordinary, a culinary conquest of the known world. The wine, of course, flowed in rivers, not just any wine, but the finest vintages, aged for decades, sometimes even a century, each sip a taste of history itself,
a liquid legacy of forgotten summers.
But beyond the sheer culinary excess, there were whispers of other, more potent additions to these gatherings. You might catch the subtle, almost imperceptible scent of opium, sweet and narcotic, drifting through the air of a private triclinium, a dining room. It wasn't always smoked. Often it was dissolved into wine, creating a potent draft that dulled the senses, heightened perceptions, and loosened inhibitions. You'd feel a gentle wave of euphoria wash over you, the conversation becoming more profound, more intimate, the laughter more genuine, or perhaps more manic. It was a liquid veil pulled gently over the harsh edges of reality, transforming a simple dinner into a waking dream, a fleeting escape from the crushing weight of their own gilded existence. For those burdened by the immense responsibilities of empire, or simply bored by the predictability of their lives, these opium-laced wines offered a temporary vacation from the self, a blissful oblivion that promised no morning after. The conversations under the influence of these concoctions would often spiral into philosophical debates, poetic recitations, or even wild, unrestrained confessions. Picture a senator, usually so guarded and stoic in the forum, suddenly revealing his deepest fears, his most scandalous desires, his eyes wide and unblinking, lost in the drug's embrace. The boundaries of social decorum, so rigid in daylight, dissolved under the influence of these potent brews. It was a dangerous game where secrets, once unleashed, could never truly be recaptured, like wild birds escaping a gilded cage, forever soaring beyond reach. The morning after, a hazy memory of profound insights or shocking revelations might linger, leaving a subtle unease, a question mark hanging over the previous night's intimacy. But opium was just one key to their chemical playground. To heighten their revelry, or to chase even more elusive sensations, the Roman elite were rumored to experiment with other, far more esoteric substances. Imagine the hushed conversations among trusted slaves, the secret procurement of rare ingredients from distant lands. Perhaps certain wild mushrooms, their caps speckled with otherworldly colors, gathered from deep, damp forests in Gaul, would be carefully dried and ground, then mixed into a potent brew. The effect? A kaleidoscope of swirling colors, geometric patterns dancing before your eyes, our profound sense of interconnectedness, or perhaps a terrifying descent into paranoia. These were the ultimate sensory frontiers, pushing the boundaries of what it meant to be human, a reckless plunge into the unknown depths of consciousness.
Or consider the rare dark-flowered plants, their petals a sinister purple, brought back by adventurous traders from the mysterious East. These herbs, with their pungent, almost narcotic aroma, might be burned in hidden censers, their intoxicating smoke filling a private chamber, inducing a trance-like state. You'd feel your limbs grow heavy, your thoughts drift, and then visions would begin to bloom behind your eyelids, ancient gods whispering secrets, glimpses of future events, or terrifying apparitions from the underworld. It was a direct line to the mystical, a forced communion with forces beyond human comprehension, a dangerous dance with the divine. These were not remedies, they were experiences, designed to shatter the mundane and reveal a reality far more bizarre and thrilling. Then the emperors arrived, and with them the concept of aristocratic excess was elevated to an art form, or perhaps a terrifying pathology. Caligula, a name that still sends shivers down the spine, was a master of this dark art. Try to picture his infamous bridge built across the Bay of Baiae, not for military strategy, but to prove a prophecy wrong. On this bridge, he hosted banquets, not just on land, but on floating platforms, where the finest foods and wines were served and the most outrageous acts were performed. You might see him dressed as a god, demanding to be worshipped, his eyes burning with a feverish intensity, his every whim an absolute command. His parties were not just celebrations, they were theatrical experiments in absolute power, where human dignity was the first casualty, sacrificed at the altar of his boundless ego. Caligula's desire for sensation knew no bounds. He reportedly had his horse, Incitatus, appointed consul, and built him a marble stable with an ivory manger. Imagine the absurdity, the deliberate provocation of such an act, designed to mock the very institutions of Rome, a slap in the face to every senator. His banquets were legendary for their cruelty and depravity. He would force senators to serve him, or humiliate them publicly. The wine, no doubt, flowed freely, perhaps laced with substances that amplified his already unstable mind, pushing him further into the abyss of madness. His reign was a continuous, drug-fueled nightmare, a terrifying descent into the darkest corners of the human psyche, dragging an empire along for the ride, a chilling testament to unchecked power. And then there was Nero, the emperor who famously fiddled while Rome burned. Nero was not just an emperor, he was an artist, a performer, a patron of the arts, and a connoisseur of excess. His golden house, the Domus Aurea, was a monument to his boundless extravagance, a sprawling palace with rotating dining rooms, ceilings that showered flowers, and walls adorned with precious stones. Imagine attending a banquet there, the air thick with perfume, the sound of lyres and flutes filling the vast halls, the sheer scale of the luxury almost suffocating. It was a palace built for a god, or perhaps a madman, a testament to power unbound by any earthly constraint, a monument to his own terrifying ego.
Nero's parties, like his life, were a constant performance. He would often dress in disguise, wandering the streets of Rome at night, indulging in drunken brawls and petty crimes. In his private gardens, he hosted convivia, where the lines between guest and performer, reality and illusion, completely dissolved. The wine almost certainly was not just grape juice. Whispers abound of exotic poisons, of subtle hallucinogens, of potent sedatives mixed into the imperial goblets. You might see guests suddenly fall into a deep slumber, or burst into uncontrollable laughter, or begin to speak in strange prophetic tongues. These were not just parties, they were psychological experiments, designed to test the limits of human endurance and the boundaries of sanity, a terrifying playground for a twisted mind. The motivation behind this extreme decadence was complex. For some, it was simply boredom, the existential dread of having everything and nothing left to strive for. For others, it was a display of power,
a way to assert their absolute control over life and death, over pleasure and pain. Imagine the thrill of knowing that your every whim, no matter how outrageous, would be instantly fulfilled, that no law, no moral code could touch you. It was a godlike existence, a dizzying height from which the world below seemed insignificant, ripe for manipulation, a throne built on the shifting sands of indulgence. For some, these substances offered a way to cope with the immense pressure of ruling an empire, a temporary balm for the anxieties of power. For others, it was a desperate search for new sensations, a constant chasing of the dragon, pushing further and further into the unknown. The morning after these lavish, chemically enhanced escapades, when the first rays of dawn pierced through heavy silk curtains, you would awaken with a skull-splitting headache and an unsettling emptiness. The whispered confessions of the night before, the brilliant, swirling visions, would now be nothing but hazy, fragmented memories, like shattered glass reflecting a forgotten dream. You might find yourself wondering, was it truly liberation, or just another form of imprisonment, a desperate, futile attempt to fill a void within your soul? The echoes of laughter would feel hollow, the lingering scent of incense like a ghost, a chilling reminder of the temporary nature of even the most profound altered states. There was no true escape, only a brief, intoxicating detour before the harsh realities of Roman life and the emptiness of endless privilege returned with a vengeance.
The common Roman, toiling in the fields or struggling in the city, would have viewed this aristocratic excess with a mixture of awe, envy, and simmering resentment. While the games in the Colosseum offered a controlled release for the masses, the private debauchery of the elite was a stark reminder of the vast chasm between their lives. The whispers of imperial orgies and hidden vices would fuel both fascination and a quiet, burning anger, a slow-burning fuse beneath the foundations of the empire, threatening to ignite at any moment. This stark contrast, this blatant disregard for traditional Roman virtues, contributed to a growing sense of moral decay that many historians believe played a role in the eventual decline of the empire, a rot that started from the very top. The truth behind these aristocratic excesses is far more terrifying than simple overindulgence. It reveals a society at the pinnacle of its power, yet grappling with an internal emptiness, a desperate need for stimulation that led them down increasingly dark and dangerous paths. The pursuit of ultimate pleasure, fueled by exotic substances and boundless wealth, became a self-consuming fire, burning away the very essence of humanity. The gilded cages of their villas became prisons of their own making, where the only escape was deeper into the intoxicating abyss of excess, a descent into a self-made hell. And as you look back at these tales, you can't help but wonder, how much of our own modern pursuit of extreme sensation, our own blurred lines between pleasure and oblivion, echoes that wild, untamed spirit of the Roman elite? Perhaps the multi-million-dollar parties of today, the all-night raves fueled by various substances, or the shocking acts performed for views on social media aren't modern inventions at all. We might simply be repeating that primal instinct, that desperate craving that haunted the Romans for millennia. After all, Does humanity ever truly learn to be content with what it has?
The parchment lies blank before you, mocking your ambition. Your stylus, once a swift extension of your very soul, feels heavy, inert. The words, usually a torrent, are now a trickle, stagnant and uninspired. You pace your villa's sun-drenched peristyle, the rhythmic splash of the fountain doing nothing to soothe the frantic buzzing in your mind. The pressure is immense. The patron expects an epic. Your rivals whisper about your waning genius, and the muse, that fickle goddess, has abandoned you entirely. You've tried everything: long walks, fasting, even tedious hours at the public baths. Nothing. Just the crushing weight of expectation and the hollow echo of your own creative void. Then, a quiet knock. Your trusted slave enters, bearing a small, unassuming cup. The liquid within is a deep, murky green, giving off a faint, earthy aroma, subtly sweet, almost like distant honey. You hesitate, your stomach clenching with a mix of desperation and apprehension. This isn't the usual Falernian wine, nor the common herbal tea. This is something else, something whispered about in hushed tones among the city's most brilliant, yet most creatively starved minds. You lift the cup, the cool ceramic, a strange comfort against your trembling fingers, and you drink. The taste is bitter, then sweet. Then a tingling warmth spreads through your veins, a subtle loosening behind your eyes. The world, once sharp and demanding, begins to soften, its edges blurring, its colors deepening. The fountain's splash becomes a symphony, the scent of jasmine in your garden a profound revelation. This isn't just a drink, it's a key, turning slowly in the lock of your own perception, promising to unleash the very torrent of inspiration you so desperately crave, a plunge into the intoxicating abyss of pure thought. You see, even the greatest minds of Rome, the poets whose verses still echo through millennia, the philosophers whose ideas shaped empires, were not immune to the frustrating, soul-crushing agony of creative block. They faced immense pressure to produce masterpieces, to articulate profound truths, to capture the essence of their world in immortal words. Public acclaim, patronage, and eternal glory hinged on their ability to consistently deliver brilliance. But inspiration, as any artist knows, is a capricious mistress. It doesn't always arrive on command. So what do you do when your genius feels like a dried-up well and the weight of expectation is a stone around your neck? You seek a shortcut, a forbidden path, a way to trick the muse into whispering her secrets directly into your ear, even if it means venturing into uncharted territories of the mind. People whispered about these mind-expanding substances, not as illicit drugs, but as tools, as sacred conduits to higher thought. Imagine the hushed conversations in the private libraries of wealthy intellectuals, the subtle exchange of rare herbs and ancient recipes. The substances varied, often drawing from the same pharmacopoeia we discussed earlier, but repurposed for intellectual rather than purely hedonistic ends. Opium, for instance, might be consumed in a carefully measured dose, not to induce oblivion, but to achieve a profound state of detached clarity. You'd feel your racing thoughts slow, the incessant chatter of the mundane world fading into a distant hum, leaving behind a vast,
silent expanse where ideas could coalesce with startling precision. It was like cleaning the dust from the lenses of your mind, allowing you to see the universe with crystalline sharpness, every concept illuminated with an almost blinding light.
Or perhaps they experimented with mandrake not for surgery, but for its vivid hallucinogenic properties. Imagine a poet seeking to truly see the gods of Olympus, to walk among them, to feel the very fabric of their myths. A carefully prepared mandrake infusion, bitter and earthy, might send them spiraling into a world of swirling colors and impossible forms. You might find yourself conversing with spectral figures, witnessing the birth of stars, or experiencing the raw, untamed emotions of ancient deities. It was a forced pilgrimage to the land of dreams, a terrifying but exhilarating journey into the very heart of myth, where imagination became tangible reality. These were not mere visions. They were perceived as direct encounters with the divine, sources of unparalleled inspiration. Consider Ovid, the brilliant, scandalous poet, whose verses on love and transformation still captivate us. Picture him not in the bustling forum, but in the secluded tranquility of his villa garden, perhaps at dusk, as the last rays of sun paint the sky in hues of purple and gold. He holds that special cup, his eyes, usually so keen and observant, now distant, unfocused, lost in an inner landscape. As the herbal infusion takes hold, the world around him begins to shift. The statues in his garden might seem to subtly move, their marble skin rippling like flesh. The murmur of the wind through the cypress trees transforms into the whispered secrets of nymphs and gods. His mind, already a fertile ground for myth, becomes a vibrant living tapestry, where Cupid himself might alight on his shoulder, whispering verses of forbidden love directly into his ear. The scandalous nature of his poetry, his unflinching exploration of human desire and divine folly, might well have been fueled by these chemically induced explorations of the human psyche, pushing him beyond the conventional boundaries of Roman verse. When the visions began to recede, Ovid would seize his stylus, his hand a blur across the parchment. The verses would pour forth like a liberated torrent, not just words, but vivid images, raw emotions, as if the gods themselves had momentarily possessed his pen. Each twisting line, every dazzling metaphor, bore the indelible mark of that journey into the mythological realm, transforming his metamorphoses into a work of unparalleled grandeur, imbued with the very breath of divine dreams. It was a feverish race against time, a desperate attempt to capture the fleeting echoes of transcendence before they vanished like mist in the morning sun. But Ovid was likely not alone. Think of Horace, the celebrated lyric poet, known for his love of wine. While he often praised the simple joys of a good vintage, one wonders if his wine sometimes held more than just fermented grapes. Could his profound insights into human nature, his witty observations on Roman society, have been sharpened by subtle infusions, allowing him to see the world with a clarity that bordered on the prescient? His words, seemingly effortless, might have been forged in the crucible of altered perception, each line a meticulously crafted jewel born from a moment of transcendent insight. Even the Stoic philosopher Seneca,
who preached self-control and rational thought might have understood the effects of these substances, perhaps even condemning them from a position of personal experience, knowing the seductive power they held over the mind.
Consider Seneca, grappling with the profound complexities of virtue and human suffering. He might have sat for hours, his brow furrowed, the answers elusive, like smoke slipping through his fingers. Then, a carefully prepared draft, perhaps a subtle blend of herbs known to sharpen the intellect while calming the incessant internal monologue. As the liquid took hold, the philosophical knots in his mind would begin to unravel. Concepts that once seemed impenetrable, now aligning themselves with crystalline clarity. The intricate tapestry of human morality would suddenly reveal its hidden patterns, each thread connecting to a grander design, a flash of pure, unadulterated understanding. He might then rise, not with a flourish, but with a quiet, resolute certainty, ready to dictate a treatise that would illuminate the path to wisdom for generations to come, his arguments flowing with an effortless logic that belied the esoteric journey that birthed them. The goal for these intellectuals wasn't just to get high in the modern sense. It was about furor poeticus, divine madness, a state where the poet was believed to be possessed by a god, allowing them to channel supernatural wisdom. For philosophers, it was about gnosis, a direct, intuitive understanding of cosmic truths, a way to bypass the limitations of logic and reason. Imagine the frustration of grappling with complex philosophical concepts, of trying to understand the very nature of existence, only to hit a wall. Then a draft of a special concoction, and suddenly the universe unfolds before your mind's eye. You might experience synesthesia, where colors have sounds and sounds have textures. Time might stretch or compress, a single moment feeling like an eternity, or an entire lifetime flashing by in an instant. The very fabric of reality would seem to unravel, revealing the intricate patterns of the cosmos, a terrifying but exhilarating glimpse behind the curtain of existence. The process of translating these chaotic, often overwhelming visions into coherent art or profound philosophy was in itself a monumental task. Imagine emerging from such a trance, your mind still reeling, your body heavy with fatigue. The images, the sounds, the profound insights would be a swirling vortex, difficult to grasp, even harder to articulate. The true genius lay not just in experiencing these states, but in the arduous work of capturing their essence, of distilling the raw, untamed chaos into structured verse, into logical arguments, into narratives that could be understood by mere mortals. It was like trying to bottle a thunderstorm, to capture the essence of a hurricane in a fragile glass, a monumental challenge for even the most brilliant minds. The morning after these profound, mind-altering journeys, the physical toll would be undeniable. A dull ache behind the eyes, a lingering sense of disorientation, a body that felt heavy and unresponsive. But the mental residue would be far more significant. The mundane world would seem flat, muted, almost colorless after the vibrant tapestry of the altered state. You would carry a secret, a profound experience that set you apart, a knowledge that could not be shared with those who had not walked the same path. The stigma, if discovered, would be immense.
Accusations of madness, of impiety, of dabbling in forbidden arts could ruin a reputation, even lead to exile or worse. It was a solitary burden, a hidden crown of thorns worn by those who dared to glimpse beyond the veil, forever marked by their illicit wisdom.
But was it truly a gift or a curse in disguise? Whispers circulated that not a few geniuses ventured too far, losing themselves permanently in the labyrinth of their own minds, transforming the whispers of the muse into the terrifying screams of demons. Or worse, they became utterly dependent, unable to create unless submerged in the embrace of that dark green magic, sacrificing their free will for a fleeting artificial spark. Their brilliance became a gilded cage, trapping them in a cycle of chemical dependence, a tragic testament to the price of forced inspiration. The very source of their genius became their master, demanding more and more, pushing them closer to the precipice of madness. This raises a fascinating, unsettling question. Did these substances truly enhance creativity, unlocking dormant genius? Or did they merely provide a temporary illusion of insight, a chemically induced spark that allowed already brilliant minds to push past their self-imposed limits? Perhaps the genius was always there, latent, waiting for a key to unlock its full potential. These concoctions simply provided that key, however dangerous. It was a Faustian bargain, trading temporary clarity and profound visions for a potential descent into madness or addiction, a dangerous dance with the unknown, a perilous journey into the very heart of their own souls. This story reveals a Rome where even the most revered intellectuals, the very architects of its culture and thought, were willing to explore the wild, untamed territories of the mind in their relentless pursuit of inspiration and truth. It makes you wonder about the true origins of some of humanity's greatest works. Were they born purely from disciplined intellect, or were they whispered into existence by the strange, intoxicating muses found in a bitter draught? It reminds you that the human desire to transcend, to create, to understand, is a powerful, almost desperate force, one that has always driven us to seek out the extraordinary, even if it means dancing on the edge of the abyss. This makes you ponder. Perhaps not a few of humanity's greatest masterpieces, be they symphonies, paintings, or groundbreaking scientific discoveries, carry a hidden secret within their very essence, a curse or a blessing born from bitter potions, from adventurous journeys into the abyss of consciousness. The search for inspiration, for that elusive spark of genius, is a timeless and sometimes terrifying journey into the wild heart of human consciousness, echoing across millennia.
The first slivers of dawn, cold and unforgiving, stabbed through the gaps in your villa's heavy curtains, a brutal awakening after a night that now feels like a fever dream. Your head, a drum beaten by a legion of angry furies, throbs with an intensity that threatens to split your skull. Every nerve ending in your body screams in protest, each muscle a taut, agonizing knot. Your tongue feels like a piece of dried leather stuck to the roof of your mouth, and a bitter, metallic taste coats your palate, a grim reminder of the gallons of Falernian wine, perhaps laced with something more that you consumed. The air, once thick with perfume and laughter, now carries the stale stench of spilled wine, unwashed bodies, and the faint, nauseating aroma of something truly foul. You try to move, to sit up, but your limbs refuse, heavy as lead,
betraying you with a profound, bone-deep weariness. This isn't just a hangover. This is the god's personal vengeance, a divine smiting delivered directly to your very soul, a brutal reckoning for every wild indulgence. The world spins, threatening to pull you back into the dark abyss of unconsciousness, but the relentless hammering in your head keeps you tethered to this agonizing reality. You've witnessed the Bacchanalia, tasted the mind-altering wines, seen the elite indulge in their chemical escapades. But even in an empire as mighty and seemingly invincible as Rome, every act of excess, every plunge into the abyss of indulgence came with a price. And that price, often, was paid in the agonizing currency of the morning after. People whispered that Roman hangovers were worse than anything you'd ever experienced, a torment specifically designed by the fates for those who dared to defy the natural order. It was a cruel irony. The very substances that promised liberation now held you captive in a prison of your own making, a relentless, throbbing cage. Imagine the scene. The sun, a merciless orb, now fully risen, casting harsh light on the remnants of last night's revelry. The mosaic floors, once gleaming, are now sticky with spilled wine, littered with overturned goblets, discarded garlands, and perhaps the occasional unconscious body. The air, heavy and stagnant, carries the lingering scent of vomit and stale incense. Your stomach churns, threatening to betray you with every slight movement, every distant sound. The slaves, moving silently like ghosts, begin the arduous task of cleaning, their faces impassive, their eyes perhaps holding a hint of silent judgment. Their quiet efficiency is a stark contrast to your internal chaos, a subtle reminder of the order you so gleefully shattered just hours ago. The headache, a relentless drumbeat behind your eyes, is just the beginning. Your entire body feels like it's been run over by a legion of chariots, each muscle screaming in protest, each joint stiff and aching. Your mouth is a desert, parched and bitter, a taste of ash and regret. Every sound, every flicker of light is an assault on your hypersensitive senses. The world outside, once a vibrant tapestry, is now a dull, painful blur. It's a cruel punishment, a physical manifestation of every boundary you crossed, every inhibition you shed, every whisper of caution you ignored. But the Romans, ever practical, even in their suffering, had their own peculiar remedies for this divine retribution. Ancient medical texts, like those compiled by Pliny the Elder or Celsus, described a fascinating, often horrifying pharmacopoeia of hangover cures. Forget a simple glass of water or a strong coffee. Their solutions were far more visceral. Imagine being offered a concoction made from goat's bile, its bitter, acrid taste threatening to send you back into the very nausea you're trying to escape. The belief was that the bile, a digestive fluid, would somehow cut through the toxins in your system, cleansing you from within. It was a desperate gamble, a nauseating leap of faith into the depths of ancient folk medicine, hoping the cure wasn't worse than the disease. Or perhaps, for the truly desperate, there was the infamous owl's egg. Yes, you heard that right. Imagine cracking open a raw owl's egg, its contents slimy and unappetizing, and forcing yourself to swallow it whole. The reasoning behind this was less clear, perhaps tied to the owl's nocturnal nature,
suggesting it could somehow reverse the effects of a night of wild abandon. It was a truly grotesque sacrament, a desperate attempt to appease the angry gods of the morning after, a ritual of self-abasement in the face of overwhelming misery. The thought alone might be enough to make you retch, a testament to the sheer desperation of a Roman hangover. Beyond these more exotic remedies, the Romans also employed simpler, yet still unpleasant methods. They might induce vomiting, a common practice even during feasts to make room for more food. But in the morning, it was a forced expulsion, a violent purging of the system, hoping to rid the body of the lingering effects of excess. You might see a group of revelers, pale and shaking, gathered around a basin, their faces contorted in agony, each wretch a desperate plea for relief. It was a grim ritual of purification, a physical act of contrition for the sins of the night, a desperate attempt to reset the body's internal clock. For others, the cure was simply time, and perhaps a quiet, almost meditative suffering. You might retreat to a darkened room, lying perfectly still, pretending to commune with the gods, hoping that the sheer force of your stillness would somehow calm the tempest raging within your skull. The silence would be a welcome balm, a temporary reprieve from the cacophony of your own throbbing temples. It was a forced introspection, a silent confrontation with the consequences of your own choices, a moment of profound, if agonizing, self-awareness. The Roman medical texts, while not explicitly using the term hangover, often described symptoms that perfectly match what you're experiencing. Pains of the head, stomach distress, weakness of the limbs. And their remedies, while strange, reflect a deep understanding of the body's reaction to excessive indulgence. They knew the price of their wildness, and they sought, however crudely, to mitigate it. Their medical knowledge, a strange blend of empirical observation and ancient superstition, was a desperate shield against the inevitable consequences of their own hedonism. The pounding headache, however, wasn't solely the fault of the Falernian wine. People whispered that the true architects of this morning nightmare were the mysterious herbs, the drops of opium, or the insidious mandrake that had been secretly mixed into your goblet the night before. These weren't merely intoxicants, they were keys to a false enlightenment, promising peaks of pleasure, but dragging you down into the depths of agony. They didn't just elevate your senses, they extracted a brutal toll, a physical confession for your chemically induced epiphanies. The very substances that offered a temporary escape now held you captive in a prison of your own making, a relentless throbbing cage of regret. As the searing pain slowly began to recede, a cold question would creep into your mind. Were those moments of ecstatic transcendence truly worth this suffering? You might promise yourself in that moment of profound vulnerability that you would never again repeat such an indulgence, that you would embrace a life of moderation, of stoic virtue. But deep down you knew that promise was as fragile as morning mist, easily dissolving when night fell, and the siren call of the wild, of the forbidden, echoed once more. Your resolve, a thin shield against the allure of excess, would feel utterly inadequate against the primal human craving for more, for different.
You would then begin the arduous process of re-entering the world. You'd struggled to don your toga, attempting to hide the tremor in your hands, the pallor of your face. You'd step out of your villa, perhaps into the bustling forum, where the world still spun with political intrigue, legal debates, and the endless clamor of Roman life. But for you, everything would seem distant, muted, almost meaningless after your journey into the abyss of your own consciousness. The grand speeches, the urgent pleas, the very fabric of Roman society would feel thin, insubstantial, a mere backdrop to the profound, terrifying experiences that had just consumed you. You were a ghost in your own life, moving through a world that no longer felt quite real, forever marked by the secrets you carried within. And it wasn't just the hangovers from wine. People whispered that those who had dared to venture into the secret cults, who had tasted the kaikion or the mysterious sacred mushrooms, faced a different kind of morning after. This was a spiritual hangover, a profound emptiness, a sense of disconnection from ordinary reality. It was as if your soul had wandered too far, glimpsed too much, and was struggling to find its way back home. The world, once vibrant with the echoes of divine visions, would now seem flat, devoid of meaning, a cruel mockery of the enlightenment you had briefly grasped. You might feel a lingering paranoia, a sense of being watched, or a profound melancholy that no amount of public spectacle could ever alleviate. This wasn't just a story about fleeting pleasure. It was a stark reminder that every act of wildness, every indulgence that pushed the boundaries of human experience, came with an inevitable cost. The physical agony of the hangover was a tangible manifestation of that price, a brutal lesson delivered by your own body. It was a moment of humbling, a stripping away of the grandeur and power that defined Roman life. In the harsh light of dawn, stripped bare by the relentless pain, even the mightiest senator, the most celebrated poet, was reduced to a mere mortal, utterly vulnerable to the whims of his own biology. And so, as the sun climbed higher, casting long, unforgiving shadows across the city, the Romans would slowly, agonizingly begin their recovery. They would re-enter the world of order and duty, perhaps with a newfound, albeit temporary, appreciation for moderation. But the memory of the night, the intoxicating rush of bacchanalia, the profound visions from altered wines, the raw power of magic would linger. It was a cycle, a perpetual dance between rigid order and chaotic release, a testament to the enduring human desire to push limits even when the consequences were agonizingly clear. This story reveals that even in their pursuit of the extraordinary, the Romans were still fundamentally human, subject to the same biological laws that govern us all. Their wild journey wasn't without its painful detours, its moments of profound regret. And as you contemplate their suffering, their bizarre remedies, and their eventual weary return to normalcy, you can't help but feel a strange sense of kinship, because the pounding headache, the churning stomach, the bitter taste of regret, these are universal truths, echoes of a shared human experience that transcend millennia, reminding us that the price of excess is always, eventually, due. Whether you are a Roman senator stumbling out of a bacchanalian revelry, or a modern office worker nursing a brutal headache after a night of complex cocktails, the cost remains the same. The throbbing temples, the churning stomach, the creeping sense of remorse, this is the timeless symphony of excess, a stark reminder that no matter the era, human nature relentlessly seeks new boundaries, only to inevitably pay the price. The dust has settled on the Colosseum's blood-soaked sands. The echoes of bacchanalian drums have faded into the whispers of history, and the opulent villas of emperors now lie in glorious ruin. You've journeyed through the hidden currents of ancient Rome, glimpsing a world far more untamed, more chemically adventurous than any textbook dared to suggest. But here's the unsettling truth. That wildness, that relentless pursuit of sensation, transcendence, or simply escape, didn't vanish with the fall of the empire. Oh no, it merely went underground, mutating, adapting, weaving itself into the very fabric of Western history and culture, an invisible thread connecting their ancient excesses to our modern impulses. Imagine a ghost, a primal urge that simply refused to die, lurking in the shadows of our most seemingly civilized behaviors. You might think you're a product of modern enlightenment, but a closer look reveals the ancient Roman beast still stirring within, a silent, persistent echo from a forgotten past. The very air you breathe, the desires that tug at your soul, might carry the faint, intoxicating scent of their long-lost revelries. People whisper that, though hidden or transformed, those ancient festivals, those daring methods of seeking altered states, subtly seeped into later customs and beliefs. You might dismiss it as mere coincidence, but consider the wild, uninhibited energy of a modern music festival, a sea of bodies swaying to a hypnotic beat, losing themselves in a collective euphoria. It's not just the music, it's the primal urge to be part of something larger than yourself, to shed individual inhibitions and dissolve into a collective consciousness of joy. Doesn't it carry a faint, almost primal echo of the Bacchanalia, where reason surrendered to instinct and the boundaries of self dissolved into a shared, ecstatic frenzy? It's as if the spirit of Bacchus, once driven underground, found new, unsuspecting vessels in every generation, yearning for that same untamed release, a raw, primal scream against the confines of order. Think of the vibrant costumes, the body paint, the sometimes bizarre symbols you see at these festivals. Are they not an unconscious echo of the masks, the elaborate garments that Bacchanalian revelers once donned to conceal their true, wild selves? It's a desperate craving for primal connection, a call from a distant past when humans gathered around fires, singing and dancing without a shred of self-consciousness. Or think about the mystery cults, those secret societies where initiates sought profound enlightenment through sacred, often psychoactive draughts. While the specific rituals and substances vanished, the human desire for a deeper, personal spiritual experience, one that transcends dogma and offers direct revelation, never truly died. You see it in various spiritual movements throughout history, in esoteric practices that promise hidden knowledge, and in the yearning for a direct connection to the divine that bypasses conventional pathways. From secluded meditation retreats to self-help courses promising inner enlightenment, people still tirelessly seek shortcuts to profound understanding, a direct glimpse into the cosmic truth without the need for outdated doctrines. The ancient Roman quest for gnosis, for a direct glimpse into cosmic truth, still resonates in the quiet corners of our modern spiritual landscape, a whispered promise of ultimate understanding, a timeless yearning for the unseen. Perhaps the very concept of a secret society or a hidden truth, with its solemn oaths and veiled rituals in modern exclusive organizations, owes a direct, distant debt to those Roman seekers who dared to look beyond the obvious, who swore to protect their sacred knowledge with their very lives. They sought the meaning of life, the universe, and the true self, and that search continues, just with different names and different elixirs.
And what about the Roman physicians,
Those daring alchemists who blurred the lines between healing and a high. Their knowledge, however crude, of opium, mandrake, and other potent herbs laid a foundational, if often forgotten, groundwork for later pharmacology. You might find yourself reaching for a modern painkiller, a carefully synthesized pill designed to dull your aches, and never once consider its ancient lineage. But the very impulse to alleviate suffering, to escape physical torment through chemical means, has roots in those Roman apothecaries, where bitter concoctions promised not just relief, but sometimes a temporary journey into oblivion. From a rudimentary poppy draught in the hand of a Roman healer, to the thousands of precisely formulated analgesics and sedatives in modern laboratories, the desire to soothe pain, to blur the boundaries of body and mind, remains a crimson thread woven through human history. Our modern pharmacies, gleaming and sterile, are perhaps distant, sanitized descendants of those ancient, dimly lit chambers where desperate patients sought solace in nature's most potent and often dangerous gifts. A silent homage to the pioneering work of figures like Galen and Hippocrates, who first laid the foundations for our journey to control pain. Consider the enduring human fascination with altered states, whether for pleasure, inspiration, or escape. The Roman elite, with their opium-laced wines and exotic herbal concoctions, were pioneers in this field, pushing the boundaries of consciousness simply because they could. You might see their reflection in the modern pursuit of extreme sensations, in the endless quest for new highs, in the blurring lines between recreational drug use and self-medication. It's not just illicit substances, it's the adrenaline rush from extreme sports, the immersive dive into virtual realities and gaming worlds, or even the constant dopamine hit from social media, where you endlessly scroll, seeking validation, seeking a fleeting thrill. The desire to transcend the mundane, to escape the crushing weight of reality, is a timeless human condition, a relentless hunger that spans millennia, connecting us directly to the hedonists of ancient Rome, a digital bacchanalia for the modern age. It is the same desperate craving to feel something more, to push beyond the ordinary, to experience life with heightened intensity, a primal scream for sensation in an often overwhelming, yet paradoxically mundane world. This legacy isn't just about the substances themselves, but the underlying human motivations, the boredom of endless privilege, the desperation of chronic pain, the yearning for profound spiritual meaning, the relentless pressure to create. These were the driving forces behind Rome's wildness. And aren't these the same forces that drive us today? You might find yourself scrolling endlessly through digital feeds, seeking a new thrill, a new distraction, a new way to feel something in a world that often feels overwhelming or, paradoxically, utterly mundane. The Roman quest for heightened sensation, for a temporary escape from the self, echoes in every click, every swipe, every desperate pursuit of the next fleeting pleasure, a digital bacchanalia for the modern age.
The very concept of decadence itself, a term so often applied to the Roman Empire, continues to fascinate and horrify us. We are drawn to stories of excess, of empires crumbling under the weight of their own indulgence. Why? Because perhaps deep down, we recognize a part of ourselves in that wild, unrestrained pursuit of pleasure and power. The Roman elite, with their scandalous lives and their chemical experiments, serve as both a cautionary tale and a perverse inspiration. Just as the Roman aristocracy indulged in excess out of the boredom of privilege, modern societies, with their unprecedented material abundance, face a new form of boredom. The overstimulation of information, the saturation of entertainment options, might be pushing us into a spiraling search for the unconventional, the unique experiences just to feel alive. Their boundless appetites, once confined to the pages of history, now seem to ripple through our own collective consciousness, a silent invitation to push our own boundaries, a reflection in the distorted mirror of time. You see this reflected in modern cinema, art, and fashion, which often glorify or critique this very excess, proving that the Roman beast is still very much alive and well. This enduring influence isn't always obvious. It's not in the grand architecture or the complex legal codes that Rome bequeathed to the West. No, its wild legacy lies in the hidden corners of human behavior, in the unspoken desires, in the constant, often unconscious search for joy, enlightenment, and escape. It's a subtle, almost imperceptible thread woven into the tapestry of our modern lives, a testament to the enduring power of ancient impulses, a silent, persistent hum beneath the surface of our ordered existence. So, the next time you find yourself immersed in a moment of pure, uninhibited joy, or perhaps seeking solace from the world's harsh realities, take a moment to pause. Listen closely. You might just hear the faint, distant echo of Roman drums, the ghostly laughter from a forgotten banquet, or the whispered incantations of a long-lost cult. Because Rome, in its truest, wildest form, isn't just a collection of ruins. It's a living, breathing force that continues to shape the very desires and impulses that define us, a legacy far more potent and pervasive than you'd ever believe. And in these unexpected corners of our lives, the wild spirit of Rome still reverberates, a timeless reminder of humanity's unyielding quest for more, a relentless hunger that will never truly be satisfied. And so, our journey through the hidden corners of ancient Rome comes to an end. Thank you so much for joining us every step of the way, listening to the whispers of history and feeling the wildness that still echoes today. If these stories have ignited your curiosity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Your engagement is truly our inspiration to keep uncovering more mysteries of the world.